Hello, I'm Michael Stearns with Hero Web Marketing and Design, and I'm here today to talk about a very serious topic, fraud prevention on your website. Over the past several months, we're seeing the number of fraudulent orders increasing among our website e-commerce site owners. Their sites are getting hit by a lot of people who are out there to cause no good. And here's a list of steps that you can take to prevent fraud on your website. And we're going to divide this discussion up into three parts: prevention, scrutiny, and follow-up. So let's talk first a little about prevention. And to a large extent, this relies on the technology partners you are working with. You want to make sure that you're working with technology partners who have strong security measures in place. So this would include your website hosting provider, the gateway company, and even the payment processing company that you've chosen to work with. You want to use a secure server. So I don't want to make this discussion overly technical, but just to keep it simple, that the checkout page on your website should have HTTPS in the address bar when you reach that page, and a secure lock should show up in the corner, depending on Firefox or Internet Explorer. It shows up in a different spot, but you should see that in your browser. You want to keep good records. In the event that you end up having a problem, it's very important that you can go back and have records of past orders to help you track down what happened on the site and provide documentation. You want to use a credit card gateway to process credit cards. So roughly this means an automated system that involves using a third party that will check and authorize credit cards right when an order is placed. If it's set up correctly, the card cannot go through unless certain criteria check out. So some of the functions on these systems that are very handy are, number one, the address verification or AVS system. So this will ensure that the address information that the user or the shopper inputs on your site matches what is on their card. If it doesn't match and you have this set up, the order won't go through. In an added measure, you can use what's called the CVC or card verification code. So this is that little 3-digit number on the back of your credit card, and you want to make sure you require it on your website, so the shopper needs to put that in there. And then on the gateway, assuming you're using a gateway that supports this feature, you want to require that number needs to be present in order for the transaction to go through. Very good measure you can put in place to ensure that someone has the card in hand when they place the order. Then, there's many anti-fraud measures or deterrents you can put on your website. You want to have some stern warnings. You want to make it clear that you take security very seriously. This can be a good deterrent, so someone knows that they're not on a site which is going to be an easy target for them. Another technology measure is that you can screen IP addresses. So assuming you have a system in place, that you can have your system flag or warn you if it gets many orders coming from the same IP address. And if you're not sure what that is, that's the numerical address of every user on the internet has an address basically assigned to their computer. And so when an order is placed, your system likely can track that number and monitor to see if there's a lot of orders coming from a particular IP address. Okay, let's talk about scrutiny, because it's up to you to monitor the orders on your website. And it's very tempting and important to have streamlined processes and have everything run quickly. But you really need to scrutinize the orders that come through and look for irregularities and signs of mischievous behavior. So here are some telltale signs that something might be amiss. Number one, if the email address of the purchaser of a product is from one of the, we'll call them free providers, like Hotmail or Yahoo Mail or Gmail, this could be a sign that they're trying to stay anonymous if they have a very general and vague email address. The next item to look for, if the ship to address does not match the bill to address. Of course, it could be a gift, that's a legitimate reason. But one of the items that you need to look for, and if several of these items check out, you might want to investigate further. Definitely getting back to what I've mentioned before about the IP address. So if the IP address is from a different country than the bill to address, could be a sign, definite sign of a problem. Or, really international orders in general. Unless you're savvy about what you're doing, you're an experienced site owner, I usually recommend to our customers to stay away from international orders until you get some experience under your belt, because certainly there's a higher degree of fraud from orders coming overseas. Also, let's give some other examples. You know, if you receive a large order from a first-time customer, it's a great feeling to get that $3,000 order on your website. But you need to look a little carefully if most of your orders tend to be $50 or $100. Let's say that someone orders 100 rechargeable drills. That's kind of an odd order for an individual to be placing on a website unless they're a wholesaler. You know, you might want to look into that order carefully. Other things to look for: if the phone number is from a different state than the billing address, that should be easy enough to spot on the order, so that could be a good sign that something is a little bit strange. So the appearance of one or two of these indicators, it isn't necessarily conclusive, but if you see several of these red flags coming through on an order, that is a cause for concern. And if you think you've discovered orders that have fraudulent intent, if your intuition tells you something is not quite right, then it's time to move on to follow-up and doing a little bit of detective work. So here are some of the procedures you can go through if you suspect fraud. So first of all, look up the shopper's telephone number. There are several online services you can use to see if that telephone number actually matches with the person who orders. Switchboard.com or Google, certainly. Use Google. You can Google the person and see if they actually exist and if their address matches up. Then, if we talked about the email address being a little fishy, go ahead and email them. If the email bounces back right away, you know something could be wrong. If the email goes through, ask them some questions. Ask them to just, verify the order and make sure that you got everything correctly. Likely, if someone responds and is willing to engage you, that's a good sign that they could legitimately want to place the order. But you want to be very careful. And then, of course, you can telephone the person. Give them a call. Let them know that just as you take security very seriously. You want to check the card issuing bank and just make sure, is a routine practice that for a large order that the card, the credit card checks out. So that's the kind of steps that you can take, and sometimes, it's up to your best judgment to make sure that the person you're working with is someone that you do want to do business with. It's not always easy to spot fraud, but these tips that I've talked about are concrete things you can do to protect yourself. There's no need to treat every order with suspicion, but staying watchful and vigilant before you have a big problem can really save you a lot of time and headache and, of course, lost revenue, lost money. So I hope you enjoyed those tips, if it's possible to enjoy talking about fraud, and that you'll be able to put some of those into action. Thank you.